In The Premature Burial by Edgar Allan Poe, published in 1844, the main character describes his struggle with a condition where he randomly falls into a death-like trance, a condition we now know as catalepsy. Because of this, he developed a deep fear of being buried alive. His fear compelled him to mention several cases of people who had been buried alive. In one case, the truth was only discovered too late, and the victim's crypt was reopened. In other cases, the victims revived, managed to draw attention to themselves, and were freed from their horrifying prisons. The narrator uses these examples to justify his overwhelming fear, one of which was the possibility of falling into catalepsy while away from home and having his condition mistaken for death. So, he made his friends promise not to bury him prematurely, not to leave his home, and to build an elaborate tomb equipped with devices that would allow him to signal for help should he awaken after death. However, one day, the narrator woke up in pitch darkness, confined in a small space. The first thought that came to his mind was that he had been buried alive. All the precautions he had taken to prevent this exact moment had ultimately proven useless. Panicked, he cried out for help. But he was immediately hushed. Turns out, he was in the berth of a small boat, not a grave. This event jolted him out of his obsession with death, and soon after, his condition faded entirely, leading him to believe that his affliction had been a symptom of his phobia, not the cause. Edgar Allan Poe wrote this story after observing the 19th century public's fascination with the fear of being buried alive. This fear was warranted, as numerous cases existed of people mistakenly pronounced dead by doctors. That's why many coffins from this period were equipped with emergency devices, allowing the dead to call for help should they turn out to be alive. The fear even led to the creation of the London Association for the Prevention of Premature Burial in 1896. Some believe that the legend of vampires, where an animated corpse remains in its grave by day and emerges to prey on the living at night, can be traced back to premature burial. However, Paul Barber argued that the incidence of premature burial has been exaggerated, and that the normal effects of decomposition are often mistaken for signs of life. Even so, it undeniably happened. In 1885, the New York Times reported a case of a man named Jenkins who was found lying face down inside his coffin. Much of his hair had been pulled out, and scratch marks covered the coffin's interior on all sides. Understandably, his family was reportedly distressed beyond measure at the criminal carelessness. To prevent such tragedies, various methods were used to confirm death. According to Shane McCorristeen, one purpose of an Irish wake was to ensure that the person was truly dead. In the 1880s, J.G. Crickbaum patented a device that provided air to buried victims, signaling to those above that the person had been buried alive. While accidental premature burial is often caused by human error, nature can just as easily be responsible. Natural disasters like earthquakes, landslides, mudslides, and avalanches frequently entomb people alive. Additionally, some workplaces, such as mines, carry an ever-present risk of collapse, making burial alive a constant danger for those who work there. Most fear premature burial due to its accidental nature, but it can also be intentional, often as a form of torture, murder, or execution. In ancient Rome, the Vestal Virgins were priestesses of Vesta, the goddess of the sacred hearth. They had extraordinary rights and privileges, some of which no one else, male or female, had. But in return, they had to stay chaste. If they broke this vow, they were sentenced to be buried alive, a bloodless death meant to look voluntary. Their lovers, if caught, were publicly beaten to death. Honestly, I don't know which one is worse, but I'd rather not go through either. Between 262 and 260 BC, The Battle of Changping took place, earning a reputation as one of the bloodiest battles in history. What makes it even more horrifying is that over 200,000 captured soldiers were executed by being buried alive by the state of Zhao. Even today, scattered bones and mass graves are still being uncovered. Herodotus once described in histories that burying people alive was an ancient Persian custom. According to him, Amestris, the wife of Xerxes, had 14 children from Persia's noble families to be buried alive. The reason? To show gratitude to the god beneath the earth. Living burial was also used as punishment for crimes that are deemed unnatural. In 1611 Sweden, a man was sentenced to death for committing bestiality with a horse. He was given a grim choice: be buried alive or burned at the stake, along with the poor animal. The final outcome remains unknown, as the sentence required the king's approval, and the documents from that period have been lost. Weirdly enough, some people have voluntarily chosen this ghastly fate, usually to prove their ability to survive it. Around 1840, Sadhu Haridas, an Indian yogi, allegedly volunteered to be buried alive. He was sealed inside a vault, which was then covered with soil and even sown over with crops. To prevent fraud, witnesses supervised the process. After more than 10 months, he was supposedly dug up alive. However, medical science says survival without food, water, or air for that long is impossible. Some claim the burial actually lasted only 40 days. Regardless, the practice was eventually banned by the Indian government after multiple people died attempting it. Many of these cases happened a long time ago, but there were also cases of intentional burial in recent history, especially during times of conflict. During the Balkan Wars, Serbian officials were documented to have buried Bulgarian civilians alive in what is now the Republic of North Macedonia. In World War II, Japanese soldiers went on a killing spree and buried Chinese civilians alive, especially during the Nanjing Massacre. The Germans also used the same method on the Jews in Ukraine and Belarus during World War II. Even during the Gulf War in 1990, American tanks buried Iraqi soldiers alive by shoveling earth into their trenches, with estimates ranging from 80 to 250 deaths. It seems like this cruel act is not going away anytime soon, even as the world modernizes. As long as war and violence exist, it looks like it'll always stay with us, despite the already existing fear of premature burial at our deaths. The fear of being buried alive has haunted people for centuries, and post the premature burial perfectly captured this paranoia, showing how fear itself can be more crippling than the actual threat. While medical advancements have reduced accidental cases, history proves that burial alive isn't always a mistake. From punishments and executions to acts of war, humans have long used it as a tool of cruelty. And with violence still deeply ingrained in the world, the horror of being buried alive hasn't vanished. It's only taken on new forms.